The union's reflex is to file a grievance against teams who they view as their payroll being too low. Just their payroll, their active payroll. The Marlins had grievances filed against us by the players union several years in a row. And they did it as a way to make sure that the constituents of the union, the players, thought that the union heads were doing something to benefit them so they wouldn't lose their jobs. The grievances were filed in order to try to show players, hey, we're going to make sure you've got 30 opportunities for you to sign and for you to play. Now, keep in mind, there's a whole group of members of the union who love teams with low payroll because the majority of the union is made up of players making the minimum, young players. And when you've got a low payroll, that means you've got fewer people at the top of the food chain. You have more players making the minimum. What does that mean? You have more players getting service time. You have more players in the big leagues versus in the minor leagues. If you asked a young player today, what organization do you want to play for, pretending there were no Rule 4 draft, pretending that every player, every person with a pulse and a glove was a free agent from the minute they came out of the womb, the overwhelming majority of players, and for me, that's not anecdotal because I spoke to players for almost 2 decades when I was running something. They said, hey, opportunity path to the big league. Opportunity path to the big league. Wait, you don't care about our school system? Wait, you don't care that we're close to the Dominican? Wait, you don't care that we have a good airport and great weather? You don't care that we have the best facility in the world and that we give everyone free noiseless canceling headsets? You don't like the fact that we've got big plush chairs? Nope. I want the fastest path to the big leagues. Which team will call me up the quickest so I can start the clock to free agency? And so the irony of the union standing up and talking about filing grievances, and by the way, well, let me finish this thought so Coca doesn't get angry. The irony of the union filing grievances against teams like the Pirates and the Marlins is that the majority of the people in the union are just fine with the Pirates and the Marlins. That's number one. No matter what you hear or read, when you speak to players, there is a group of players who's not happy because if you are a mid-level $10 million, $12 million player, but not really, but that's what you want as many teams bidding for you as possible. But the young players, the minor league players, they dig it. We had to settle a grievance one year, Coca. We promised baseball. We did a favor. I've never talked about this, I don't believe, Matthew. I helped do a settlement with the union over a grievance that was filed against the Marlins, and I agreed to sign a letter that I regretted later. And I was asked to basically take the fall on behalf of a bunch of teams and acknowledge that we had not spent enough on our helping our major league product. And the punishment is that we had to sign a player to a long-term deal. My brain is hurting right now because it was either Hanley Ramirez or Josh Johnson who we signed to a deal right after settling a grievance, right after I signed a letter that acknowledged that the union was right and that we had violated the CBA. And I did that only to take the heat off the other teams that were involved in the grievance because I knew I needed something from MLB. What I needed from MLB had to do with our new stadium. It had to do with agreements we made when we moved from Montreal to Florida, where we had borrowed money from Major League Baseball. I needed them to agree to a settlement on the amount of money that was owed to Major League Baseball once we got a ballpark. So there was a lot going on there. It was part of a larger negotiation. But I look back and regret that because I don't know why I would ever want to be associated with having not 4869. I don't know why I would ever want to be associated with not following the rules of the CBA because we did. every time. And so this year, there's a lot of talk. The Pittsburgh Pirates, the Miami Marlins, they're in the free agent market. They're offering Josh Naylor money. I don't think the Pirates ever did. They're looking at Michael King as a starting pitcher, he of Mr. Qualified offer. A lot of talk. Is it possible that the Pirates and the Marlins will sign a free agent? Maybe. Is it possible that it is only a lot of off-season talk? Hey, we're in it with this guy. We're in it with that guy. Man, we couldn't compete. They didn't want to come here. They wanted to play for a quote-unquote winner. They wanted to play in a different city. What the union is looking for, though, they're not looking for whether or not a top free agent signs with the Marlins. They're not looking at whether or not the Marlins sign Kyle Stowers to a long-term deal, just like they didn't care when the Pirates signed Brian Reynolds to his long-term deal. What the union is focused on behalf of the top of the union is total player payroll. You don't need to sign a free agent to raise your payroll. You can raise your payroll through mid-level free agents. You can raise your payroll through trades. There are myriad ways to raise your payroll without overpaying for a free agent. What the union is always looking for in order to assuage the top of the market, which this year, the Tuckers, the Schwarbers, is they want to say to their players, hey, you got 30 teams looking at you, man. This is amazing. But is that real?